In the heart of a dusty little town called Willow Creek, life moved slowly but vibrantly. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the wooden buildings that lined Main Street. At the center of it all stood the Rusty Nail, the local saloon and gathering place for townsfolk. Its creaky doors opened to reveal a warm atmosphere filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and lively conversations. Behind the bar was Hank, the barkeep known for his quick smile and quicker wit. He had lived in Willow Creek all his life and knew everyone's secrets, though he never let on. His kind heart made him a favorite among locals, and he took pride in serving up frosty mugs of sarsaparilla and whiskey. Hank was particularly close to Deputy Jim, a young man with a strong sense of justice and a reputation for being brave. They shared many late-night chats about dreams and aspirations while cleaning up after closing time. But not far from the bar was Sheriff Thompson's house, where his wife, Clara, held a different kind of power. With her fiery spirit and fierce loyalty to her husband, Clara was not one to be taken lightly. She often visited the Rusty Nail to keep an eye on things in town, but her relationship with Hank was complicated. There were whispers of past romantic interests that had long faded but still lingered in the air. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange hue over Willow Creek, tensions began to rise in the saloon, setting the stage for a night no one would forget. Little did they know that trouble was just around the corner. As the evening wore on at the Rusty Nail, the atmosphere thickened with a mix of laughter and underlying tension. Locals crowded around the bar, sharing stories and drinks, but an unsettling vibe brewed in the air. A group of rough-looking men had entered, their brash laughter and loud voices turning heads and raising eyebrows. They were new to town, and the regulars exchanged wary glances, sensing trouble might be brewing. Hank wiped down the bar, trying to keep things friendly despite the growing unease. Deputy Jim was on duty that night, his watchful eye scanning the room for any signs of trouble. He had already stepped in once to break up a heated argument between two patrons, but the new arrivals pushed the limits of patience. Tensions flared as one of the strangers leaned too close to a local farmer, taunting him with threats that made the room quiet. Just as Hank poured another drink for an anxious customer, chaos erupted. One of the newcomers shoved Deputy Jim, who reacted swiftly, placing himself between the bully and the farmer. The situation escalated quickly as words turned into shoves, and before anyone could react, a sudden flash of steel appeared. A knife glinted in the dim light as it plunged into Jim's side. Gasps filled the air, and panic spread like wildfire. Hank rushed to help his friend, applying pressure to the wound while shouting for someone to fetch a doctor. As chaos erupted around him, time seemed to stand still, each heartbeat echoing in the tension-laden air. Little did they know that Clara would soon burst through the doors, armed and ready to confront whatever danger awaited them all. Hank felt his heart race as he rushed to Deputy Jim's side, the chaos around him fading into a blur. The knife wound was deep, and blood soaked through Jim's shirt, painting a stark contrast against the wood floor of the saloon. Hank quickly grabbed a clean cloth from behind the bar, pressing it against Jim's side with all his strength, hoping to slow the bleeding. "Stay with me, Jim," Hank urged, his voice steady despite the panic swelling in his chest. "Help is on the way." He could see the pain etched across Jim's face, but he pushed aside his fear for his friend and focused on what needed to be done. As he applied pressure, Hank called out to the patrons, "Someone go get Doc Miller, now!" A few townsfolk scrambled to obey, their faces pale with shock. Meanwhile, Hank kept talking to Jim, trying to keep him conscious. "Remember that time we caught those outlaws at the river? You were faster than a rattlesnake that day," he recalled, hoping to lift Jim's spirits even a little. The commotion continued as more people crowded around them, some trying to help while others stared in disbelief. The group of newcomers had backed off for now, but Hank could feel their eyes on him, tension still thick in the air. Just as he began to feel a flicker of hope with the arrival of a few concerned faces, Clara burst through the doors, twin derringers aimed at the ground. Her fierce gaze swept across the scene before landing on Hank and Jim. "Step aside. I won't let anyone else get hurt," she declared fiercely, ready to protect those she cared about. The saloon doors swung open with a loud bang as Clara burst into the Rusty Nail. Her twin derringers aimed squarely at the floor. The startled patrons turned to look at her, their expressions a mix of surprise and fear. In that instant, the air crackled with tension as Clara scanned the scene, her heart pounding in her chest. When she caught sight of Hank kneeling beside a bleeding Deputy Jim, urgency flooded through her veins. He looked pale, and blood pooled around him like a dark halo. Clara's fierce gaze narrowed on the group of newcomers who had caused this chaos, her instincts as both a wife and protector igniting a burning fire within her. "Step back, everyone," she commanded, her voice strong and unyielding. The room fell silent, all eyes on the sheriff's wife as she stepped forward, ready to confront any unseen threats. Her grip tightened on the derringers, reminding onlookers of her determination. She scanned the bar, assessing the situation before locking eyes with Hank. "How bad is it?" Clara asked urgently, moving closer but keeping her guns poised in case of trouble. Hank met her gaze, worry etched on his face. "Doc's on his way," he replied quickly, glancing back at Jim. "But we need to keep pressure on the wound." Clara nodded firmly, shifting her focus between Hank and Jim, absorbing the gravity of the moment. "Not on my watch," she vowed, turning to address the restless crowd. "Nobody else is going to get hurt tonight." With that, Clara stood tall, ready to protect those she loved against any threat that dared approach. As Clara stood firm with her derringers, the rest of the saloon seemed to hold its breath. The group of newcomers exchanged glances, their bravado shaken by her fierce stance. One of the men, a burly figure with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward defiantly. "What are you going to do, sweetheart? Those guns won't save your friend," he sneered, trying to regain control of the situation. Clara's gaze hardened as she leveled her weapons at him, refusing to back down. "You've already done enough damage," she shot back, her voice steady and fierce. There was a fire in her eyes that warned all present she would not hesitate if pushed. The bar seemed ripe with raw emotion. Fear mingled with anger as onlookers held their breath, unsure of what would happen next. Meanwhile, Hank glanced up at Clara with gratitude mixed with worry. "Just keep them away from us?" he murmured while continuing to apply pressure to Jim's wound. Clara nodded, aware that time was critical. The man scoffed at Clara's show of defiance and turned towards his companions, whispering something that made them chuckle darkly. "This isn't over," he warned before backing away slightly but still keeping an eye on her. "We're not afraid of you," Clara countered fiercely, stepping forward again, determination etched across her features. Just then, a low groan from Jim brought everyone's focus back to the medical emergency at hand. With emotions swirling fiercely around them, fear for Jim's life and anger toward the men who started this. Everyone in the Rusty Nail understood that things would never be quite the same after this night. Clara would stop at nothing to protect those she loved in a town now overshadowed by conflict and uncertainty. As the tension in the Rusty Nail reached a boiling point, conflicting loyalties began to surface among the characters present. Hank knelt beside Jim, torn between his duty as a friend and his complicated feelings for Clara. He had always respected Sheriff Thompson, but his heart raced with concern for Clara as she faced the intruders. Would standing by her side mean betraying the sheriff's trust? Clara's fierce determination to protect Jim clashed with her loyalty to her husband, the sheriff. She knew that entering this situation meant risking her relationship with Thompson, especially if anything went wrong. Yet, as she held her guns steady, she couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal toward a town that had once been peaceful but was now threatened by violence. What kind of sheriff would allow this? She thought bitterly. Meanwhile, Jim lay on the ground, struggling to stay conscious. His loyalty to Hank was unwavering, but he felt a pang of regret for getting embroiled in the conflict with the newcomers. As he fought against the pain, he wondered if he had put his friends in danger by trying to uphold the law. With each labored breath, he realized that their bonds were now intertwined with fear and uncertainty. The newcomers sensed the shifting emotions, eager to exploit any weakness. As they whispered among themselves, contemplating their next move, Clara's resolve hardened. The loyalty she felt for Jim and Hank outweighed her fears. In that moment, she made a silent promise. No matter the cost, she would protect those she cared about from further harm. The balance of trust and betrayal hung heavy in the air, shaping the fates of everyone involved in this fateful night. Just as the tension reached its peak, the heavy footsteps of the town doctor echoed through the saloon as Doc Miller burst into the chaos. "What in tarnation is happening here?" he shouted, his doctor's bag clutched tightly in one hand. His arrival broke the thick atmosphere of fear as everyone turned to him, a glimmer of hope washing over the scene. "Jim's been stabbed," Hank hurriedly explained while still applying pressure to Jim's wound. With the urgency of a seasoned medic, Doc Miller advanced and knelt beside Jim, immediately assessing the severity of the injury. Clara stepped aside slightly, still gripping her derringers but letting the doctor take charge. The fire in her eyes shifted from anger to concern for Jim's well-being. The group of newcomers, sensing that the situation was spiraling out of their control, began to exchange nervous glances. Just then, the sheriff entered behind Doc Miller, alerted by the commotion. Hearing the frantic reports about his wife and deputy, Sheriff Thompson took immediate charge of the newcomers. "You lot are in deep trouble," he said sternly, gesturing for them to step away from any possible escape. As the sheriff rounded up the rough men, tension faded into a sense of closure. Clara lowered her guns, relief flooding through her as she realized Jim would receive help. Doc Miller worked swiftly, stabilizing Jim and commanding Hank to assist with bandaging. Once Jim was carefully placed on a makeshift stretcher to be carried out for further treatment, Clara approached Hank, who looked visibly shaken but relieved. Their eyes locked for a moment, the understanding between them unspoken but profound. In that small saloon, amidst chaos and uncertainty, loyalty emerged victorious over betrayal. Willow Creek would surely remember this night, but it had brought them all together in an unexpected way. In the days following the dramatic incident at the Rusty Nail, the small town of Willow Creek found itself forever changed. The echoes of that night lingered in the minds of its residents, reminding them of the fragility of peace and the unexpected dangers that could shatter their sense of security. For Hank, the barkeep, the experience deepened his sense of responsibility toward his patrons and friends. He knew he could no longer merely serve drinks. He had to look after the safety of those who walked through his doors. Meanwhile, Clara faced complex emotions as she navigated her relationship with her husband, Sheriff Thompson. The incident had strained their bond, leaving her with a fierce resolve to stand by her loved ones, but also a sense of guilt for placing herself in danger. As she resumed her role in the community, Clara became a symbol of resilience, proving that strength could exist alongside vulnerability. Deputy Jim's recovery was slow but steady. The town rallied around him, and his bravery during the confrontation earned him newfound respect. Yet, each glance at his bandaged side reminded him of the risk he took to uphold the law and protect his community. The incident forced him to confront not only his physical wounds but also the emotional scars that came with defending a town against escalating violence. The newcomer's threat faded, but it left an imprint on Willow Creek's collective psyche, one that turned strangers into allies and neighbors into friends. While fear filled the air initially, it transformed into a stronger commitment to one another. That fateful night served as a catalyst for unity, proving that loyalty could rise from betrayal and that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The events at the Rusty Nail left a lasting mark on the community of Willow Creek, teaching its residents profound lessons about trust, loyalty, and the strength found in unity. What began as a night of chaos transformed into an opportunity for reflection and growth. Hank, Clara, and Jim each emerged with a deeper understanding of their roles within the town, realizing that their connections to one another were vital in times of crisis. Hank took it upon himself to ensure that the Rusty Nail remained a safe haven for everyone. He implemented new measures to protect his patrons, fostering a sense of security while rebuilding the trust that had been shaken. His willingness to confront dangers head-on inspired others to look out for one another, reminding them of the importance of community. Clara's fierce determination to protect those she loved became a rallying point for the townsfolk. Her actions not only showcased her courage but also ignited a spirit of resilience in others. The townspeople began to stand together, more aware than ever of the fragility of their peaceful lives and the need to support one another against any threats. Deputy Jim's slow recovery became symbolic of the town's healing process. As he regained strength, he found himself becoming a mentor to younger deputies, sharing lessons learned from the confrontation that night and emphasizing the importance of camaraderie in law enforcement. Ultimately, the violent encounter at the Rusty Nail served not only as a moment of crisis but also as a catalyst for change. Willow Creek emerged stronger, bound by shared experiences and a renewed commitment to protect one another. The bonds forged in that turbulent time would carry them forward, ensuring that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead.